Well, this looks pretty miraculous for British weather. I just did the gardening right here, and I think I'm suffering from hay fever still. It is July, and by now a bunch of interesting movies has been released. So, in preparation for new films I might be watching this summer, I'm going to do a bit of cleaning up. As today, in this movie mashups episode, I'll be doubling the amount of movies I'll review. And this is gonna be fun. Now, just to clear things out of the way before we start this episode, of course, as usual, there's gonna be spoilers, and this is just my personal opinion. Or if there's any movies coming to the cinemas right now that you want to recommend me, then don't be shy and suggest in the chat. I always read my comments, and I'll make sure to try them out where's possible. Anyway, enough blabbering from me. What are we starting off with today? Yes, I actually watched that. Firestarter was the most dreadful cinematic experience I had this year. Aside from the actress for Charlie, all the performances are pretty tepid, and I couldn't get invested with their character. The story is so typical, oh, let's get that one character because they have one interesting power and use it for our own gain, wahaha. Trouble is that if an Amazon Prime show and a YouTube original animation series could do this plotline a lot better, then your movie is seriously crap. The stakes, while generally high, feels very false, due to the amount of progression our main character Charlie goes through, which simply boils down to getting a new ability that the writer just threw in there for no good reason. For example, near the end of the movie, Charlie gets her dad's ability to mind control people, but it just feels very artificial progression as she only uses it to solve a problem, like a writer just clearly didn't care about writing a damn good movie. The main antagonist of the movie barely gets any screen time and is just killed off gratuitously. And while Rainbird was sort of cool, his character motivations were really inconsistent and made his heel face turn very confusing. Oh, and don't get me started on Zac Efron's character. While I thought he was the best part of The Greatest Showman, I thought he was easily the worst part of this film, as the writers felt the need to constantly reiterate his weakness over and over and over again. If there was any one character that I only liked, it was, well, this dude, but that's because he was probably more of a distraction from how dull this movie really is. The action sequences were poorly choreographed and there was not much to them, and even though this is technically supposed to be a horror film, it's not really that scary, and the most scariest scene to happen is in the opening credits. That's pretty embarrassing. The only real saving grace for this movie is John Carpenter's soundtrack for this film, as the use of synths really does add tension to this film. Firestarter, in a lot of ways, reminds me of the destructive use of fire itself. It is annoying, and it needs to be extinguished. 1.5. Now let's get to a film that is considerably a lot better. We have Everything Everywhere All at Once. Telling a realistic story while also having the concept of a multiverse sounds like a weird idea on paper, but somehow this is executed exceptionally. In fact, dare I say, even more so than Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness. And the incredible acting just bolsters the experience. It's ridiculous enough to be quite a good comedy, but also serious enough to tell a really good story about a mother and daughter relationship. This is a film I desperately do not want to spoil, because this is a film that you guys just need to see without knowing any background information about the film. For example, in one part of the film, Evelyn does a joke about Ratatouille, but then that actually becomes a major plot point of the film itself. And I just dig the fight scenes. They're some of the most well-choreographed and bombastic action sequences I've seen in a long time. I know what weapon to use when bio oppositions pull up on my block. I think I've explained myself enough. Everywhere, Anywhere, All at Once is an amazing film, and what could have been just the most funniest bad films of all time, instead became one of the most memorable, unique, and creative films I have ever watched. 5 out of 5. Everything in cinema is all in one place. I'm currently struggling to give Top Gun Maverick a proper score at the moment, because I do remember watching the original movie once, but I just forgot everything about it. So, in the meantime, the score will be just based on this movie alone, and not as a sequel to Top Gun. But as a standalone movie, it's quite good. While some of the pilots in this film can be nothing more than just filler, yes, I'm talking about You, Yale, this sequel to the popular 80s film seems to be more focused on its characters, especially Maverick himself, whose past actions come back to haunt him when Goose's son, Rooster, becomes part of the project to destroy the uranium container. So it's nice that we get a lot of personal stakes in this film. But again, unfortunately, I just feel I can't really say much of this film unless I rewatch the first Top Gun film. Only that way I feel I can get my full opinion to form, so for the time being, 5 out of 5. Fortunately, I can go out saying that Top Gun Maverick is a perfect example of a sequel to an 80s franchise done right. And finally, to finish things off, we have the only documentary in this video, Flea. I was really excited to watch this one, as this is a documentary told through a medium of animation, and I couldn't watch this one until recently, since this film was playing in cinemas till really late at night. The story is about a gay Afghanistan refugee called Amin, whose name and face were changed for privacy reasons. And it shows life before the Taliban took over Afghanistan, making the story even more tragic. And it just adds a greater sense of realism and realization that refugees go through a lot of trouble to escape the country. This may sound the usual praise that Flea is getting already, and I'm very proud that an independent Danish film like Flea is getting so much good reviews and recognition. But the trouble is, I take huge issue with the animation. Sometimes it's smooth, sometimes it isn't, and it's really distracting and unfortunately took me out some important bits of the film. So, I'm so sorry, but 3.5. Amin's story is really heartbreaking and it's something not to gloss over. But, unfortunately, the inconsistent animation really hinders the presentation of this otherwise amazing film. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of this video. But it doesn't end here, no. Are there any other films that are currently in cinemas that you recommend me? Please let me know, as I am open to any opinions. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video.